and welcome to the podcast. My name is Bruce Starr, and my guest today is Alicia Cuesta. Alicia is a mental health therapist who offers various treatment options to individuals throughout South Florida area. Her focus is on trauma therapy, and she provides this service to people of all ages and demographics. She's bilingual and is able to provide individual therapy to Spanish-speaking people, which is in high demand in the South Florida area. Her main focus is on EMDR therapy, and we're going to find out what that means, and play therapy for children. We'll be discussing both of these treatments in greater detail throughout the conversation today. Alicia received her master's degree in clinical mental health counseling from Hodges University, in which she received the academic award summa cum laude. Very good, congratulations. She's currently employed by a mental health organization, but also has a private practice, which is titled Supportive Concepts. And Alicia provides a much needed resource for the community, and it is important that her skills, treatment options, and success stories be made more readily available to the public. So, Alicia, thanks so much for doing the podcast with me today, and I so look forward to learning a lot more about your work. So welcome to the show.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you for that introduction. It's great. I'm glad I'm here with you to share a little more about what I do.
Super. So first thing I'd like you to do is to kind of tell me about, we mentioned EMDR therapy and we mentioned child therapy. Could you explain those one at a time so that we really get an idea of what you do and how you do it?
Sure. So play therapy is a psychotherapy that allows children to express themselves through toys. And this approach is based on the idea that children communicate unconsciously through play. It's a non-directive approach. So what I do is I bring toys, or they come into the office and there's toys, and they are able to go at their own pace and express themselves how they want. So it's a non-directive approach.
I mean, I know you can't believe everything you see on TV, but it really looked like it worked when they were, the therapists were able to allow the kids to show what happened with the toys that they probably couldn't express verbally. Is that true?
Correct. So it's very hard for a child to sit down like an adult and say, this is how I'm feeling, this is what happened, and talk as an adult. They talk differently, so they express themselves differently. So they use the toys to express what they're feeling. So when I have a child come into my session, is we allow them to explore. And as I mentioned, it's a non-directive approach, whereas the child is in charge. So they play with what they want to play with, and I follow them, right? So as building rapport with children is also very, very important. And that's another way of building rapport is through allowing them to be themselves through the toys. And then they might be able to express things that they can't verbalize. So through that unconscious play. EMDR is an evidence-based therapy, and the acronym stands for eye movement, desensitization, and reprocessing. What EMDR is the reprocessing of traumatic events. Trauma is the incomplete process of difficult and painful life experiences. Those painful life experiences impact our reactions, emotions, and beliefs in the present moment. So what it is it reprocesses the memory since it caused incomplete. Since it's incomplete, it is trauma. Reprocessing of the trauma allows clients to heal and not allow those emotions to be in the present moment.
Let me ask you about PTSD, a lot of people know that. They've seen it expressed on TV. And I think people believe that only those returning from war or other super traumatic experiences like that are the only ones suffering from PTSD. And I know personally, my own experience, it could be getting fired from a job, it could be having your first love reject you and saying goodbye and never want to see you again. So those are just two that I know about. So tell me about PTSD and how you work with that.
Yes, so that's a great point you made because many people like to refer to PTSD as a very traumatic event, and not necessarily. It can be the incompletion of in children separation of their parents. Anything that caused an emotional distress in your life is considered trauma. It doesn't have to be, it can be physical or emotional, but it doesn't have to be this huge event that we sometimes refer to as traumatic. Like you mentioned, people think PTSD is someone who went to war. We all experience trauma differently. We all process trauma very differently. So sometimes people don't complete it, and that's where the symptoms of PTSD come in. The nightmares, the feeling of unsafeness, um, the negative beliefs that the clients create about themselves. And this is a big one because with trauma, we create beliefs and they tend to be negative. When it is not complete, it is a negative belief. For example, the belief could be, I am not safe. It can be, I am not worthy, I am not good enough. It can make you feel a sense of responsibility. I should have done something. So all these beliefs are created through trauma. So trauma is anything that impacts you emotionally. And even though it could be emotionally impactful for you and not for someone else, it doesn't mean that it's not validated.
PTSD is a lot more common than people think, and they're not dealing with it because they don't even recognize they have it, or maybe they're just so used to feeling so incomplete and so awful they've gotten used to it. How can you treat PTSD?
That is correct. PTSD can cause depression, can cause phobias. So there is many emotions attached to PTSD, and people do live with these symptoms daily where they almost feel like it's part of life. I need to feel like this. This is normal for me. And in reality, it's not. We do not need to live like that. And this is why this treatment works so well. It's because it allows the client to identify. I help clients identify these symptoms that they've had. It also sleep disturbance. That's another symptom of PTSD. People are not sleeping well and they're not understanding why. So helping the client understand why they have these symptoms and helping them decrease the emotions attached to these memories, these traumatic memories. So they have the memory, and then the emotions attached to them are present in their everyday life. And they don't realize that the emotions that they're experiencing daily comes from these memories.
And so you spoke about EMDR, and let's talk a lot more about that because I have a feeling that this therapy is going to play a much deeper role as time goes on in our lives and in our community.
Yes, so EMDR, the acronym EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. This was discovered by Francine Shapiro in the late 1980s, and she discovered that through bilateral stimulation, we can fully process a traumatic event. And the reason it was called eye movement is because she used a pen and moving the pen left and right and looking at it, that is a bilateral stimulation. And that's how it was discovered. This EMDR has been studied for almost 40 years now and have discovered other ways to do bilateral stimulation. It can be tapping, sounds, and many therapists use what I use are called tappers. These are tappers and they vibrate, they alternate, they stimulate the left and the right brain. So as they're vibrating, they're stimulating. You don't have to do anything other than hold the tappers. Through this process, the client is going into the memory. The client is fully aware and in control and can stop at any moment. They're going into the memory holding the tappers. And the reason I like the tappers is because they can close their eyes and go into the memory, and they don't really have to talk. While we're doing EMDR, they're not talking about their trauma, which is something that can be very difficult for clients. So the client is using their own brain to do the healing. So they are going through the memory, and this allows them to fully complete the memory so that the emotions attached to that memory are gone. So it's really fascinating because if a client comes and says, well, this traumatic event bothers me a 10, I ask them to rate it. And after they do the reprocessing of one memory, they will reduce that 10 to a 0. Once they reach the 0, the client no longer has to reprocess the memory. They reach a 0 by letting go of the emotions attached and changing the negative belief to the positive belief about themselves.
So, Alicia, who can benefit from EMDR? What kind of person, man, woman, old, young, what kind of person can benefit from this therapy?
So I have done EMDR with all populations and all age groups. I work with children, adolescents, adults, and elderly. So it works for all populations. It helps, we know that it helps with PTSD, but it also helps with the wide range of clinical issues. It helps with depression, anxiety, phobias, grief, people who have been through natural disasters, people who have sleep disturbances, low self-esteem, children who are encountering bullying or emotional distress. So it helps all populations, and I work with all of them, and I have seen great results from all of the different clinical issues they have.
Fascinating. Anytime someone can come up with a therapy that can help a lot of people, I think that's fantastic. So, well, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show with you was because I've started a project called Cards for Kids. And when I was in teaching, I'm sometimes a teacher, sometimes a substitute teacher. But as a substitute teacher, I get to see a lot of people in 1 month's time. And I remember one time I was in third grade, and I asked a bunch of kids, fourth grade, anybody like collecting sports cards? And like half the room raised their hand. I said, wow. Next day, I brought in a box of cards, and they were all gone by the end of the day. And I did that again, and they were all gone the next day. And I said to myself, you know what? This is what kids need in their lives to have as a very positive hobby that they can call their own, that they can build upon, that can get them off the computers, except to check the values of the cards, gets them off the phones, except to maybe make deals with the card. But basically, I wanted to add something to these kids' life that they can call their own. And it was a success. Everywhere I went at the schools, there's Mr. Starr. He's got his cards. He's got his cards. And I see them interacting with each other. And I see them trading cards with each other. And I really believe this is a fantastic, no, innocently, I didn't have no idea, innocently believe this could be a fantastic way for kids to have a better kind of childhood by just having something they can call their own and over the years grow with it. So how does Cards for Kids How do you think that can have a positive impact on children's mental health?
Yes, cards for kids can have a positive impact on children's mental health because it promotes social skills. It encourages children to engage in social interactions and create bonding experiences with their peers. And we know today, in today's digital age, it's a wonderful way for children to disconnect from social media and build personal relationships face to face. I have a lot of parents that come to me and they have a issue with social media and phones. So this is a great way to help them shift their focus to something else.
I like that you brought up bonding because lots of times, unless people have a reason to bond, they won't. If they don't have something in common that they can really get together with and build together, they won't. They'll just go on their separate ways. I love what you said about bonding and how important is bonding and connecting in a child's life.
Yes, that is very important. Cards for Kids is also a great mindfulness activity because it offers stress relief and relaxation, something that's similar to art therapy and gardening. When children focus on a hobby like card collecting, it can also significantly reduce anxiety because it reduces overthinking and allows them to be fully present. Cards for Kids also fosters emotional expression. Children can feel comfortable expressing themselves through unique card collecting habits, allowing them to stand out as individuals and showcase their personalities. So overall, Cards for Kids is it's great in supporting children's mental health and personal development.
Wow, I love what you're saying, and it just makes me feel even better that there's science behind my belief. So I want to thank you very much for speaking about that. I think that's going to give me even more confidence to go out there and know that my work is going to benefit, many, many more kids in the future. And you mentioned earlier about uh, kids being able to calm down using the cards. How about me? I can't tell you how many times I couldn't wait to get home because I had an upsetting day, an upset happened. And I know that after spending 5 or 10 minutes with those cards, I'm like a different person. I'm relaxed. I'm off. I'm feeling productive. I'm having a good time. It's so uh, there's a lot more to this than I even imagined, and I sure do appreciate getting your professional opinion about this because I think maybe you and I could work together and help a lot of kids and families.
Yes, definitely.
So, is there anything else that you would like to discuss that perhaps we didn't get a chance to talk about yet?
I think hopefully I made it clear about the understanding of EMDR because I think it is important to raise awareness in this treatment. I talk to a lot of people that do not know what it is, and I have seen such improvement in my clients, and this treatment is fast and effective. It works really fast. That's another reason I like using it. It's that it doesn't take a long time. Once a memory is reprocessed, we don't have to reprocess it again. And then they find relief in that session. So the process, let me explain to you about a little bit about the process. First, I create a trauma timeline with my clients. And that trauma timeline allows me to understand what the client has experienced. It helps me identify their negative beliefs that they might not even be aware of. Okay, so that's very important, the history taking and trauma timeline. It also allows me to build rapport with my clients because building rapport is important before going into any memory. So before that, before we go into the actual reprocessing of a memory, we do the trauma timeline. I create a safe place with my clients, and they do this mentally. just in case it becomes overwhelming, they have something to fall back on where they can calm down, okay? After we do history taking, trauma timeline, creating a safe place, we then choose a target memory. The target memory is something, I start with childhood, and I collaborate with my client to see what is the best ones to start with, because they will give me numbers. So they'll rate each trauma from 0 to 10, and then we'll choose which one we're going to start with. And then we do the reprocess of memory. So there's a process before. I can't have someone come into my session and say, well, I want to reprocess this today. There's a process before EMDR, and I think it is very beneficial to many of the clinical issues going on. Today is a lot of depression and anxiety I see in my clients. And so I think not only that, but many people will benefit from this type of therapy.
I want to thank you so much for being with me today, Alicia Cuesta, and you're doing great work. And I know this won't be the last time that we will be working together. So I want to thank you again for being here. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.